Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you the famous 10th game of 1995 Kasparov vs Anand World Chess Championship match. Anand was leading the match with a full point, and in this game Kasparov played va-bank, choosing a very risky line. Let's see what happened on the board. In this game Kasparov had white pieces and he opened up with e4, to which Anand responded with e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Ruy Lopez is on the board. a6, Morphy defense, bishop a4, knight f6, white castled kingside, knight takes e4. Black is heading towards the open variations, d4, b5, bishop goes back on b3, d5, d takes e5, bishop e6. Of course, all this is a theory, and still the players are repeating the moves of their 6th game. Knight c5, c3, d4, and knight g5. Kasparov is repeating this knight sacrifice, but Anand didn't accept it and played d takes c3. Actually, accepting the knight sacrifice is not that bad. In this case, equality appears on the board very quickly. And then if knight f3, then queen d5, and yes, soon simplifications follow and black can equalize without much effort. In the game to knight g5, Anand answered with d takes c3, knight takes e6 by Kasparov, f takes e6, b takes c3, queen d3. So all these moves were played more or less instantly. As mentioned above, all this had been seen in game 6. And interestingly, this position also occurred at 1978 Karpov-Korchnoi World Chess Championship match. Both in the games mentioned earlier. In here, knight f3 was played, but in here Kasparov made a novelty and instead played bishop c2. This novelty was suggested by Mikhail Tal during the match for the world title between Karpov and Korchnoi back in Baguio in 1978. However, according to Karpov's trainer Igor Zaitsev, in the subsequent analysis nothing significant was found. And now finally, 17 years later, Kasparov makes this novelty, and he doesn't have much to lose, you know. Anand is leading the match and he is playing va-bank. This move in conjunction with white's next move is the prelude to a spectacular rook sacrifice. Queen takes c3 by Anand, a move on which he spent 4 minutes, which says that he was expecting bishop c2, but the next move, knight b3, took him by surprise, and at this point already he spent 45 minutes thinking over his next move. Knight takes b3 by Anand. He's removing the defender, leaving the rook on a1 unprotected, but after bishop takes b3, Anand played knight d4 because accepting the rook sacrifice is losing very quickly. Let's take a quick look how white can win the game. Then in here white can first announce a check from h5. Here king e7 is out of question because after bishop g5 check you are losing your rook, and if king d7, then in here white has a very strong bishop takes e6 move, after which white is unleashing a very nice king hunt. Queen g4 check can follow, and then queen f3. If king g8, then you will get checkmate hit, and if king e6, then queen takes c6, and then it takes d6. Now rook e1 can be a nasty threat. If here, then bishop d2 followed by rook e1. Or after a queen h5 check, if move like g6, then queen f3. It was very important to provoke this g6 move in order to secure this f6 square for the queen. Right now the knight on c6 is under attack, and if knight d8 at the same time covering the e6 square, then of course white won't capture on a8, because after queen takes e5 black can solidify the position. That's why in here queen f6 is the killer move. Hitting on e6, also on h8, if rook g8, then bishop takes e6, and yes, black's position will collapse very quickly. There comes e6 check, and then white is winning the black queen. That's why in our game 2 bishop takes b3, Anand answered with knight d4. And there comes a very strong move by Kasparov, queen g4. White is not only targeting the pawn on e6, but is also indirectly protecting the bishop, because in this case queen takes e6 is winning on the spot. Yeah, if queen c5, then a takes b3, and then we can deflect this queen very easily, you know. Rook c1, queen c6 can follow then, and that's why at this point, after queen g4 on move 17, finally Anand decided to accept the rook sacrifice. There comes bishop takes e6. Kasparov was still moving more or less instantly and was over an hour ahead on the clock. Rook d8 by Anand, which is a very accurate move, preventing bishop d7 check. Yes, I want you to see the difference. For example, at this point, if move like queen c3, then let's see how bishop d7 can win. If king d8, then bishop g5 is coming, and yeah, black's position will collapse very quickly. Not only we have a mating threat, but also this rook is hanging, and after bishop d7 check, if we move like king f7, then bishop e3 hitting on d4, also rook c1 can be played, and now if bishop c6, then e6 check, and yeah, if king g8, then queen e4 hitting on a8, also preparing e7. Yeah, the game is over. This is going to be an easy win, and that's why to bishop takes e6, Anand answered with rook d8, a strong move. He covered the d7 square, and another heavy blow by Kasparov. This time we see bishop h6. Kasparov is not only attacking black queen, but also is targeting the pawn on g7. Once again he blitzed out this move, and quite possibly he had this move during the preparation. Queen c3 by Anand, but this is a mistake. According to Kasparov, Anand found the only way to survive for a while, but Stockfish says that this is a crucial mistake, and at this point it was very important to play queen b2 with the idea of neutralizing white queen as soon as possible. If bishop takes g7, then queen e2, yeah. And in this case, actually, black can put a very tough resistance. Instead to bishop h6, we have queen c3 answer, which is not giving black much. By the way, if you try a move like queen takes f1 and then g takes h6, then after queen h5 check, your king is getting checkmated. So in the game on move 19, Anand played queen c3, which, as I've already mentioned, is a mistake. And by the way, up to this point he was playing very accurately. And now let's see how Kasparov realized his advantage. Bishop takes g7. The idea is that now if bishop takes g7, then queen h5. Yes, white is removing the g pawn, not allowing any possible g6 moves. Queen d3, intending to meet queen h5 with queen g6. But we have a hanging rook, and Kasparov won it. Queen g6. And this time we have bishop f6, bishop e7, bishop takes e7, queen takes g4. So by exchanging the queens, Anand is simplifying the position, but white has a clear advantage. Rook c1, a very important move by Kasparov, and probably at this point the only move which is allowing white to win the game, you know. In this case, white is stopping black from going for c5, c4. Yeah, once black pawn appears on c4, black can create a nice counterplay. By the way, on this move Kasparov spent a lot of time, and here is how he commented. It's been a long time since I went 2 weeks without a victory, and I didn't want to spoil things after my brilliant novelty. c6 by Anand, and only in here the f pawn stepped forward. a5 by Anand. He's trying to create a counterplay on the queen side. Meanwhile, white is centralizing his king. b4, leaving white with a very tempting rook c4 move, but this is not good, because in this case black has a3 move. Yeah, and now if a move like, I don't know, rook takes d4, then you can even lose the game, because there is this b3 move. That's why to b4, Kasparov answered with bishop d1. He is first neutralizing black's queenside pawns, and only then he's making use of his monsters. Rook d5 by Anand, rook c4, c5. Well, if we move like knight f5 check, then g takes f5. If rook takes d1, then f6 check. This rook endgame is hopeless for black. That's why to rook c4, Anand answered with c5, and there comes king e4. Rook goes back on d8, and the pawn on c5 drops. Knight e6. Shall we cover this line starting with b3? Then simply bishop takes b3. Yeah, again, there is not much black can do, you know. Rook c1, first cornering the king, and then rook c1. And in the game, Anand answered with knight e6 and rook d5, rook c8, f5, rook c4 check, king e3, knight c5, g5, rook c1, and finally after rook d6, resignation followed. Yes, there is no way to stop these pawns, and at any moment white can switch his bishop into the attack from h5 as well, leaving black king in a very awkward position. That's why finally at this point Anand capitulated. So it took 17 years to realize that Mikhail Tal's novelty was really a very strong one, and only by choosing that line Kasparov managed to equalize the match score. In game 10 he celebrated a very important victory, and this is one of the best games played in his career, you know, a very accurate game by Kasparov. And in the end, a chess puzzle for you, where the task is to find the mating line for black. This is one of my favorite combinations, and as usual we'll wait for your answer in the comment section. Feel free to check out my early uploads as well. We'll see you in my next video. Take care.